Hey, what's up? My name's Samuel Leeds, and in this video I'm going to be talking about how I would invest £30,000 in buy-to-let property in the UK. So if you've got £30,000 right now in the bank and you're wanting to put it into buy-to-let property, this is the video where I'm going to explain exactly how I would do that and how I would maximise my £30,000, stretch it as far as it's go, and make as much return as possible. So the first thing I want to say is this. Property prices are going up a lot. If you're living in London right now, you might be thinking, I've only got 30 grand, that's nowhere near enough to buy a property. But the thing is, maybe you're right if you're looking at buying a property in London. But when you buy a property as an investment, it's an investment. It's not a home. You're not living in it yourself. So it doesn't actually really matter where it is too much. As long as it's giving you good income, as long as it's giving you good capital appreciation, it doesn't matter where it is too much. Someone said to me recently, they said that they were looking to buy a property. I said, where are you looking? And they said, Bristol. I said, why Bristol? And they said, because that's where I live. And to me, it doesn't make much sense because I've got, dozens and dozens of properties all over the place. But I don't manage them myself. If I was having to manage every property that I owned, I would have a full-time job being a property manager. Every property that I have is managed by somebody. It's systemized, and that way it gives me passive income. So you want to be investing. I would challenge you and say this: buy deliberately 2 hours away from your house, because that way you'll be forced to have to set a management system in place that you can't necessarily keep going there. And then when you've got those systems in place, you can go skiing, you can go on holiday, you can do what you want because you've got the systems in place. So with that being said, first place I'm going to jump on, I'm going to go onto a little website called Rightmove. Rightmove is the biggest online, here we go, UK's #1, where properties are sold and rented online. So I'm going to type in, let's do Birmingham. Let's try Birmingham, which is where I am from and where I built up a large portfolio back 10 years or so ago. But I'm going to do 40 miles. I don't really care where it is. Okay, I'm going to do 70 grand up to 140 grand. Now, if you're buying a house for 70 grand or 140, like if you're buying a house for, let's say, 100 grand, you're only going to need a deposit of 25%. So straight away, if you're thinking I've only got 30 grand, a lot of people say, there's no houses less than 140 grand. Well, let's find out. 70 to 140. Let's do 2-bed. Let's look for houses only. Not apartments or bungalows, not land or commercial. Let's do houses. And let's see what we got going. So we've got there we go, it's meant to be. It's God's number. 777 results just waiting for you. And this is just within 40 miles of Birmingham. Now, an interesting thing I like to do is I like to see how many properties have also just recently sold. So if you include the under offer or just sold subject to contract, that will go up a little bit. So that's going to go up to 3,300. That means that there's literally almost 3,000 properties in that radius that have just sold these last few weeks. That means that the market is popping. That means that the area is trending. So let's see what we got. We're not going to search from highest price. Let's search from lowest and see if there's anything for £70,000. Unfortunately, on Rightmove, there's no way to get rid of the auction properties. So a lot of these properties, like for instance this one in Coventry, this is an auction property. So you can see, look, it says it's on for 70 grand, but it's actually been sold for 110 because it's an auction property. So if it's an auction property, we're going to skip it. Let's see this one. This is in Stoke-on-Trent, Hanley. The condition is not amazing. It looks nice. They've got a beautiful sky in the background to make the property look a little bit less shit. So it looks like it's in decent condition. The kitchen looks okay. It probably needs maybe some new carpets. The walls probably need painting, but they're actually in good condition. So this is a decent property in decent condition. Nice little garden area. Maybe you could even potentially put some grass down if you wanted to. Although I'd suggest if it's an investment property, don't do that because the less maintenance, the better. At the moment, this garden is very low maintenance. So if the tenants move out and they've left the grass to grow and you haven't got to solve it because it's low maintenance. So here we go. Hanley. I used to actually give out pizzas to people in Hanley. I used to go out in early nights at the street and find drunk people and give them pizzas and chat to them. And anyway, that was a long time ago. Now I just give people property golden nuggets. Okay, here we go. Hanley. So right near Hanley Centre, it's on the market for 70,000. It's in Denby Street. Now again, let's assume for a moment that you've only got £30,000. So if you've got £30,000, do you know what I'm thinking about this property? I'm getting a bit excited now. because you could rent this property out potentially, oh my goodness, as a multi-let property. You could rent this out as a room by room property, which means you could rent this room out, this room out, this room out, and this room you would turn into a bedroom. How do you turn a reception room into a bedroom? You put a bed in it. So you could potentially get 4 lots of rents on this property, potentially. That room might be a little bit too small, so you might have to potentially be creative and have a little rejig. But even if you couldn't, let's say that we're not going to rent this out room by room. We're just going to rent this out as a straightforward buy-to-let. How much rent would you get for this property, and how much would it cost you to buy it? So let's find out how much it would cost us to buy it to begin with. So it says offers over 70,000. So let's assume that we bought it for 70,000. If we bought that property for 70,000, we'd buy the house for 70,000 pounds. We'd have to put down a deposit of 25%. So 25%, that's just going to be strictly a deposit, which is going to be 25%, 17.5 grand. So 17.5 grand is all you're going to need as a deposit to buy the house, assuming that you got a mortgage for 75%, which is very, very, very standard. So your deposit is 17,500. That's your deposit. Your mortgage is going to be 70,000 times 75%, which is 52,500. So your mortgage is 52,500. Now you might think, but would I get a mortgage? What happens if no one would lend to me? Here's the really cool thing. When you buy a house to live in, if you're buying a house to live in, we call that a residential mortgage. Getting a residential mortgage is really tricky, because if you're buying a house and trying to get a residential mortgage, the lenders need to know that you can pay back that mortgage. So they're going to want to know, what do you earn? What's your credit? What's your this? And they're going to ask you a million questions to check that you can afford it. However, with buy-to-let properties, they don't really care what you earn. Even if you're making 10 grand a year, if you're on minimum wage, right? They don't care, because what they care about is can you afford to pay that mortgage with the rent? So they don't care about your salary, they care about the rent. So the mortgage is 52.5. The rent on a property like that, interest rates are around about 2.5% at the moment. So if your mortgage is 52,500, you're going to pay 2.5%. You're going to pay £1,312 per year as the interest payments. Divide that by 12, because you pay it monthly, is 109. So you're going to pay £109 a month on the mortgage for this house. Now, if you're paying £109 a month on the mortgage, the next question is, well, what's the rent? So let's figure out what the rent is. So we've got the full postcode here, ST15JA. So if we go back to Rightmove, but this time I'm going to search rent, properties for rent. Let's see what's going down with the area. Include let, and again, we're looking for houses. And this one's quite a big house. This is a 3-bed house with 2 reception rooms and a little garden. So if we're looking for 3-bed houses in that same postcode within £1/4 mile, there's only one result, but this has been agreed. This is £750 per month. Now, to be fair, the house does look a little bit nicer. So I'd have to do a little bit more research, but let's assume that we could rent our property out for just £600 a month, which I think is very, very, very basic. And that's assuming that you don't rent it out room by room. I mean, geez, if you rent it out room by room in Hanley, Stoke-on-Trent, and by the way, this property was just the first property that I found. Like, bang. Like, this isn't a case of, oh, I found this great deal. If I type in Hanley, which is the specific part of Stoke-on-Trent that the property is, and we look for flatmates, how much are people looking to pay rent? £300 for a single or double room. £650 for a room. 500. These are like new today. People looking in Hanley. Looking for a house share. Looking for a share. So, like, you could potentially get way more rent if you were really creative, but let's just assume that you rent this property out as a basic buy-to-let for £600 a month. Well, what are the maths going to look like for you? Well, you're going to pay £110 a month on the mortgage. You're going to rent it out for 600. That means you're left with £490 a month to pay with. Now, of that £490 a month, you're going to have to pay insurance, which is about £20 a month. So minus £20. You're going to have to pay someone to manage the property, which is probably going to be about £60 a month, because usually it's 10% of the rent. You're going to have to pay for maintenance on the property if something, but even though if the tenants break something, they'll fix it. But usually I allow 10% of the rent for maintenance and other stuff. So let's say another £60. So that's going to be 60, 60, 120, 140. So 490 minus 140 means you'll be left with around about 600 minus 140 is going to be 460. So you're going to make £460 per month. You're going to make per year 460 times 12 around about £5,520 a year. So you can make an extra £5,500 per year. That's passive, okay? And you invested, in order to make that £5,500 per year, you invested how much? Well, £17,500 deposit. You're going to have to pay stamp duty and solicitor fees, maybe a little light refurb. But I'll tell you something, if you've got £30,000 in the bank, good news is you're going to have a whole lot of change in your back pocket too. That is how, if I was starting out with £30,000 and I wanted to buy a buy-to-let property, that's how I'd go about it. I hope you found this video helpful, and I'll see you next time.